So, talking about or looking at China, a large chunk of, well, not a large, but a proportion of their industrial policy seems to be quite external, like putting money into Africa through loans for their infrastructure development. I just wondered if you could maybe talk a bit about that and the effects that it could have on Africa as a continent, being reliant on these loans, and the benefits, I guess, that China will.
China, I mean, at one level has been pursuing policies similar to that of Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, but it is in many other ways very different. Because it has geopolitical ambition. Yeah? So a lot of things that it does is not purely driven by economic calculations, but it's a wish to kind of take a place in the global geopolitics. So you cannot understand what China does entirely on the basis of economic calculations. Also, secondly, it has industrialized in an era of more open global finance. So unlike the Japanese or the Korean companies, from very early on, it could actually buy up companies in foreign countries to absorb technology. So that's another important difference. Because yes, I mean, Korean companies have more recently bought American companies, European companies, and so on. But I mean, they couldn't do it when they were at, Korea was at China's level of development, because that was back in the 1980s when global financial markets were not that open. Yeah? So there are these important differences, but yeah, insofar as more specific industrial policy issues are concerned, China has started branching out into, especially Ethiopia, but some other low-wage countries, also in Asia, in recognition that its wages have been rising. Yeah? And it's basically shifting all these low-skilled, low-wage jobs like garments and so on to low-wage countries. So its expansion into Africa, first of all, is driven by that, but more importantly, is driven by the wish to have access to critical natural resources. And yeah, in that is kind of really building is the geopolitical network, the recent One Belt, One Road initiative, and various schemes to provide foreign aid to poor countries in Africa. Yeah, once again, I mean, countries like Korea were not giving foreign aid when they had $8,000 per capita income. Yeah? But China is doing it much more early. Yeah? Now, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think for the moment it's a good thing, because so far global development finance had been basically monopolized by the World Bank and the IMF. Yeah? So basically there was only one bank in town. Yeah? You basically either don't get any money or you have to follow what they are suggesting. Now with China as a potential funder, you have a bit of bargaining power as a developing country, because you can always credibly say that, well, if you don't give us better terms, we are going to go and talk to the Chinese. But in the long run, when China reaches a more kind of dominant position, is it going to be as positive? As a good Korean whose country has been bullied by all the big neighbors for the last 5,000 years, I'm always skeptical if someone becomes too strong. So, I mean, so in the long run, it could be very negative. And there are already some countries where there's so much Chinese investment and influence that it is becoming a problem. But I think on balance, at the moment, it's a positive thing. But yeah, in the future, it could be very different.
So, broadening